Good day, everyone. Our topic for today is about the different art of the continent, which is the Australia. We have here the history in Australia. Australia's art history is a mix of very old Aboriginal traditions and newer Western styles. Aboriginal art is like rock and bark paintings. It is the oldest in the world. It shows stories from the Dreamtime and connects people to the land. Later, Western style art like landscape painting become popular. Some Aboriginal artists now combine both styles in their work. Let's proceed and discuss the Australian art. First, we have Aboriginal art. Aboriginal art is special because it uses dots, lines, and symbols to tell stories. The color come from the earth like red, yellow, black, and white. These stories are from the Dreamtime, which is the Aboriginal way of explaining how the world and nature began. Their art shows a strong connection to the land, nature, and their beliefs. Next, we have colonial art. Colonial art was made by European settlers who came to Australia. They painted realistic pictures of the land, animals, plants, and people because everything looked new and different to them. Their art show how they saw Australia. Heidelberg School Art. The Heidelberg School Art, also called Australian Impressionism, was a group of artists who painted outdoors using natural light. They used quick brush strokes and bright, earthy colors to show the beauty of the Australian countryside and rural life.
Now let us move on to Australian modernist art. When we say Australian modernist art, it is an art in Australia that became bold and experimental, using strong shapes, bright colors, and abstract ideas, often reflecting themes of modern life, technology, and the impacts of war. This art refers to the art in Australia during the early to mid-20th century, roughly from 1910s to 1960s. These arts are influenced by international modernism, abstraction, cubism, surrealism, and etc. These are focusing on the breaking on traditional artistic norms and exploring new forms, colors, and techniques. As you can see in the slide, there are two paintings. I want you to focus on the second painting below that depicts a dog. That painting uses bright and bold colors that are not usually seen in Australian arts. Next in line would be the contemporary Aboriginal art. This kind of art combines the traditional storytelling with modern materials like acrylic paint on canvas that focuses on cultural identity, land rights, and preserving Aboriginal heritage through vibrant and symbolic artworks. This refers to artworks by Aboriginal and Islander peoples from the 1970s to the present, meaning to say, this kind of art is still evident up to these days. This kind of art merges the traditional cultural practices like the dot painting, the Dreamtime stories, the symbolism, with modern materials and techniques. This is often used as a form of cultural preservation, political commentary, and identity expression. Now I want you to focus on the first example or first painting example in the slide. So as what we can see, the painter still uses dot painting technique to create an artwork. This dot painting technique have discussed by Mr. Don Trinidad in the past slides. So meaning to say, when we say contemporary Aboriginal art, the artist still uses the same technique from the past but enhances his or her artwork with new materials or modern materials. Contemporary Australian art is very diverse. It includes painting, digital art, and installation, and often explores themes like the environment, the culture, migration, history, and personal identity, blending global and local influences. This kind of art was created by Australian artists from the late 20th century up to the present, including both indigenous and non-indigenous creators. This is a kind of art that is broad in style. This includes painting, digital media, sculpture, performances, and installation. This also deals with the global and the local themes like the environment, the identity, the politics, the multiculturalism, and of course, the technology. Before I end my part, I want to discuss first the sameness and the differences of those three arts. I know that these three arts are the same in some areas. For example, in the exploration and identity, all three reflects on the aspects of Australian identity, which is the national, the cultural, or the personal. They are also the same in the innovation. They are also the same in the cultural reflection, which is they all engage in Australia's environment, the history, or the society in some way. But what I think the difference would be among these three arts, the difference would be first their time scheme. They are born in different, no, they are evident in different times. For example, the first art, which is the modernist art, existed in the year 1910s up to the year 1960s. In the early year 1970s up to the present, the next art appeared, which is the contemporary Aboriginal art. And then on the next century after that, the 20th century, the last art, which is the contemporary Australian art, existed. Meaning to say, they do are the same in some ways, but they do differ in time scheme. Another one would be the technique. For example, the modernist art technique focuses on abstract surrealism and using the bright and bold colors. For the next one, we have the contemporary Aboriginal art. They uses paintings or techniques in the past. For example, the dot painting is still evident in the contemporary Aboriginal art. Next would be the technique in contemporary Australian art. They uses or they some of the paintings depicts environment, politics, and the society in Australia.
Hello everyone, I am Alea Christine Morido. At this point, Mr. Trinidad and I will discuss the various artists and their artworks. Before we proceed with our topic, let me first share why understanding art and the people behind it is important. So you see, art isn't just something we look at in museums or in textbooks. It's a way that people express themselves, their stories, and even their struggles. By learning about these artists and what inspired them, we get a deeper understanding of the world and maybe even our own. So as we go through their works today, try to connect with the emotions and ideas behind each piece. First artist is Albert Namatjira. Albert Namatjira was an Arrernte painter from the MacDonnell Ranges in Central Australia, widely considered one of the most notable Australian artists. As a pioneer of contemporary Indigenous Australian art, he was arguably one of the most famous Indigenous Australians of his generations. So meaning to say, he was a famous Arrernte painter. When we say Arrernte, this is known as the Aboriginal artist or Aboriginal people. So, as you can see in the picture, this is the Aboriginal people. So, Albert was part of the Arente people and became well known for his beautiful landscape paintings. So he was one of the first indigenous artists to gain national attention and is seen as a pioneer who helped bring indigenous Australian art into the spotlight. So, the following are the famous artwork of Albert. So, the first one is the Central Australian Landscape. So, it is one of the Albert Namatjira most famous paintings, and it was created on 1945. So this artwork beautifully shows the natural beauty of Australian outback, especially the red hills, rocky mountains, and the dry trees found in Central Australia. So Namatjira used soft, natural colors and fine details to capture how peaceful and strong the land is. So, what's the special about the painting is that it is reflect his deep connection to the land where he grew up, kung saan siya lumaki, no? So, si Namatjira ay lumaki sa Australia, no? Which is itong painting. So, ito yung parang inspiration niya. So, it's not just a painting of nature. It tells us a story about Aboriginal identity, culture, and pride. So, his style looks a bit like Western watercolor painter, but the spirit behind it is a truly indigenous. Okay, the next one is the Mount Hermannsburg. So the Mount Hermannsburg created in 1952, and also it is one of the famous artworks of Namatjira. Mount Hermannsburg is a significant mountain in Central Australia. It is traditional Aboriginal name means place of the pierced nose, reflecting its deep cultural and spiritual importance. For indigenous people, such landscapes are more than just beautiful. They hold meaning tied to identity, history, and ceremony. Moreover, Namatjira is using watercolors, no? blending Western techniques with indigenous knowledge. So, nag-use si Namatjira og lain-laing colors. So, the first one is the earthly reds and the ochres for the land, no? Soft purples and blues for distant mountains, bright blues for the sky, and greens and browns for native trees like ghost gums. And with white highlights to bring out the details. So that is the Mount Hermannsburg, no? So as you can see, ang ganda-ganda ng paintings na ginawa niya. The next artist is Frederick McCubbin. So Frederick McCubbin was a famous Australian artist and a teacher who helped create a painting style called the Heidelberg School or the Australian Impressionism. He painted scenes of the Australian life, especially the struggles and the stories of early settlers. Some of his best-known works are The Pioneer, Down on His Dock, and The Lost. This painting shows people in the Australian bush and often tell emotional stories. So, Mr. Trinidad will continue the discussion and he will show you the different artworks of Frederick McCubbin. So, that's the end of my report. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Miss Morido. Again, I'm Trinidad, Mr. Trinidad, and I will discuss the different artwork of Frederick Machiavelli. So, first is the Dawn of His Luck. So, one of the most popular art na gihimo niya kay ang Dawn of His Luck. Nagipaint niya katong 1889. So, as you can see, makita diri ang isa ka swagman. So, mao ni ang mga lalaki na nagalakaw sa bush para makita og trabaho. So nakalingkod siya sa campfire dapit. Sad siya and lalong kayo ang ginaisip. So ana ang mga art critics naong niya kay may halo nga lungkot and hirap sa buhay, pero interesting lang kay tungod wala siya self pity, though dawat gud niya ang sitwasyon na bisag lisod. So, this part has become a symbol of struggle and resilience sa mga ordinaryong tao sa Australia katong panahon na to. Next is the Pioneer. Mao ni ang pinaka-popular naghimo ni Machiavelli. And the Pioneer, gipaint niya ni katong 1904. And ang painting na ni is isa ka triptych. So, what is triptych? So, nasa'y tatlo ka bahagi or panels na magkasunod ang kwento. So, as you can see sa art, di ba na tatlo nga magkahiwalay? So, as you can see, ginapakita dari ang buhay sa isa ka selector or settler. And sa iyang pamilya habang sila gasikap na magbuo og tahanan sa Australian bush. So, sa bawat panel, makita ang journey nila starting sa pag-abot, hangtod sa nakapatindog na silang balay, and sa last panel, na ilalaki na sa tupad sa puntod na possible na asawa or anak na nagaluksa. So, The Pioneer is the one of the recognized masterpiece of Australian art. Tungod sa lalong na kwento and emotion na dalaani. So, in conclusion, Frederick Machiavelli is dili lang painter, kundi isa po siya ka storyteller tungod sa iyang mga sining. So, gamit iyang brush and colors, napakita niya ang life, struggle, and tapang sa mga tao sa panahon na pagbuo sa bansa nga Australia. So, the next artist is si Thomas William Roberts, or mas kilala na Tom Roberts. So, isa siya ka English-born Australian artist. Gipanganak siya sa England and nagbalhin, and sa Australia sila nagpuyo. So, isa sa pinaka-importante na membro sa Heidelberg School Art Movement na nakailapod bilang Australian Impressionism. So nagskwela siya sa Melbourne, pero katong 1881 nag-adto siya og Europe para mas mag-wide iyang skill sa pag-paint. Katong pagbalik niya sa Australia katong 1885, dala-dala na niya ang bagong styles and knowledge sa art na nabal-an niya sa Europe. So next slide. So, isa sa pinaka-popular na gihimo ni Tom Roberts na painting is ginatawag na The Big Picture. So, as you can see sa ato ang slide, grabe kadako gini siya nga painting. So, halos 10 by 17 feet ang iyang sukat. Maong gitawag siya The Big Picture. So, makita nimo ni siya sa Parliament House sa Canberra na, and ginaingon na mauni ang pinaka-importante na artwork na nag-record og Parliament History of Australia. So sa diri na art ginapakita dari ang una na paglingkod sa Australian Parliament, maong napaka-importante ni sa kasaysayan sa Australia. Next is The Breakaway 1891. So, isa po sa mga sikat niya nga painting. Isa sa pinakasikat niya nga painting is kaning Breakaway na gihimo katong 1881. So, gitawag ni nga icon of Australian art kay tungod Ginapakita dere ang buhay, ang kinabuhi sa bukid, and ang mga laban sa mga pastol toward sa mga hayop, na isa sa pinaka-importante na structure sa Australian identity sa una. So, this is part of the works of Roberts na gipakita niya na emerging national identity, or katong pagkabuo sa sarili nga pagkatao sa Australia bilang isa ka bansa. So, in conclusion, si Tom Roberts is kay dili lang basta painter. So, isa siya ka-artist na nagatabang na gabuo og visual identity sa Australia in terms sa iyang paintings. For example, ang The Big Picture and Breakaway. So, ginapakita niya ang history, culture, and life sa people sa iyang panahon. And that's all. Thank you for listening.